You probably graduated from one of the Ivy League schools that shaped your overall hardworking and ambitious personality, and after several years of hard work and a deserved career progression, you become one of the most respected experts in your field and probably in the whole world, who got a dream job at a company like Google that pays you above market and involves you in the world's most groundbreaking projects that will be used by millions of people later. After all, you have accomplished what any employee would hope for. You may even begin to consider what is ahead until you cross the line and get fired. Maybe you naively thought that presenting your findings to your management would help you improve the technology that you're working on. Maybe you thought about how your findings could positively affect millions of consumers who search for information every day. Or maybe you thought your management would support you and try to retain you as a valuable team member, even if you kind of threatened to leave. It's all maybe, but you are wrong in all this, and there is no such thing as an irreplaceable employee anymore, because workplace conflicts happen more frequently than company publicly apologizes. So it's naturally difficult for a public firm like Google to recognize their shortcomings and announce potential hazards they're making to the society. And therefore, because you have no authority over your employer, you have the option to leave voluntarily or involuntarily. And given that the process of termination is never fun, let's see how employers can legally fire any employee, making it appear like a voluntary resignation and get away with it. You may be fired from your work voluntarily or as a result of an employer's decision. It's up to your employer to explain why you were let go. An employer may fire you for a specific cause, such as misconduct, bad performance, breaching company policies, insubordination, or even taking too many sick days with no proof or consistently being late at work. But today you can also be easily fired for a social media post, regardless of whether you said something nasty about your company or something immoral to your neighbor. So you can be sacked for any actions that go beyond your office life that is not equivalent to the behavior an employee should have. That's why LinkedIn posts are so one-sided and overly optimistic, with almost no negative opinion shared by the servants about their masters. So it basically doesn't matter who you are, how smart you are, or which projects you're currently working on. In the end, you will be kicked out. Now let's talk about other terms companies use to legally get rid of you. Discharges and layoffs are often regarded as bad necessities, while resignations can occur under either good or negative circumstances. So discharging is sometimes called firing. You can get fired for a variety of reasons. Employers may fire you owing to a lack of performance, for example, after several attempts to help you improve your productivity. You may be fired if you repeatedly clash with your management, your coworkers, and this is done to prevent disruptive forces from coming from you, who creates a hostile work environment. Companies may terminate you on the spot in extreme situations if you show violent or threatening behavior, or if you perform a criminal act such as fraud or theft on the job. Another way to legally terminate you with no consequences or no repercussions is to lay off and downsize.
You won't actually buy this car, will you? Because you've been downsizing, hoping no one would see.
We're not downsizing.
I was on the other side of the Alperin trade. I know how much you lost.
Companies lay off employees when they can no longer afford to pay them because of financial difficulties. And layoffs can also occur when two organizations merge due to human resources redundancies that must be right-sized. So companies also lay off workers as a prelude to outsourcing divisions worldwide. However, sometimes companies may terminate you for the reasons prohibited by the law, which is illegal, such as for discrimination, whistleblowing, retaliation, retaliation or forcing you to perform dangerous and illegal work. Employers can also change your working circumstances without notice that ultimately compels you to leave or be fired. And if by some miracle you manage to obtain any proof that you lost your job as a result of these vile actions by a firm, congratulations. You can now either be reinstated or receive hefty compensation for the lost job. So I hope you managed to digest everything I threw at you in the last few minutes, but let's have a look at what's going on throughout the termination process.
I am obviously sorry that we are here today, but these are extraordinary times, as you very well must know.
So once the decision to fire an employee has been made, the employer must swiftly gather sufficient grounds for your termination, including clearly documented conduct and performance deficiencies. And HRs and managers typically rub your nose in your poor performance reviews, which are supplemented by formal warnings, write-ups, documented counseling, or provided company coaching, such as putting you on the 3-month PIP program or finding an exact clause in your contract to validate your immediate termination. After briefly informing you about your termination, companies should always advise you on your compensation package, severance pay if available, and whether or not they would assist you in finding another employment throughout placement, which is quite useless, to be honest, because no one is genuinely helping you to get a decent job that you have just lost.
We understand that this is difficult, and here is my card. Please contact me in the next few weeks if you need any assistance with this transition in your life.
So you may also not be given any explanation for your dismissal as well, and this is done to protect your employer. In most circumstances, you will be able to guess what caused your employment, otherwise your employer may not give any explanation for your dismissal. The next step that employers take is to communicate the news to the remaining employees, briefly stating in general terms that you are no longer with them.
80% of this floor was just sent home forever. We spent the last hour saying our goodbyes. They were good people and they were good at their jobs, but you were better. Now they're gone. They're not to be thought of again.
Voluntary termination is more or less straightforward. It happens when you resign from your position with the correct notice of your leaving required by your employment contract. So you may rightfully believe that if you resign on good terms, you will be rehired, and therefore you try not to burn bridges with your HR department. For example, if you need to appear friendly to your HR, if one day you wish to apply for another department, for another job, to work for another manager who is hopefully and ideally is better than your previous manager, that's when you will need HR's help to reapply to work for this company. Another way to make an involuntary termination appear voluntary is to either give an employee a constructive discharge or launch a forced discharge.
Well, the current union contract requires that an employee provide us with 2 weeks' notice before leaving his position. However, given how obviously emotional this has been for you, we're willing to do something special in this case. We've decided to waive the 2-week requirement and allow you to tender your resignation effective immediately.
No, I'm sorry, I'm not resigning.
Mr. Pavich will take care of the details.
I'd be happy to.
No.
And now that you have all the context, it's time to take a look at how Google fires its employees legally. Sundar Pichai, Google's CEO, now shares the floor with Google Brain, an artificial research service. But as I mentioned before, it doesn't matter who you are and what you do, not to mention where you were sitting. So if you think that sharing a floor or a chair with your CEO means something, let me clarify things for you. Timnit Gebru was the first person fired from Google from the Ethical AI project. Ms. Gebru is a PhD researcher who has been working on a paper about biases in AI. The report that was shared by Ms. Gebru with Google's management revealed that current AI algorithms are not created equal and are less accurate at detecting women and people of color, as well as it identified weaknesses in a new breed of language technology that misinterprets human speech, including a system produced by Google that powers the company's search engine, a system that was built by Google, by the way. The problem with those biased AI algorithms are not because they're biased all by themselves, but because they were coded incorrectly by those people who have no perspective on things due to their lack of knowledge. And therefore, AI algorithms are not artificial or intelligent and will never be. The worst case in this, a business like Google refuses to acknowledge that they have issues and instead punishes employees who try to improve the technology and speak up. So in any case, Google would fire Ms. Gibber because of the statement made by Google. Unfortunately, this particular paper was only shared with a day's notice before its deadline. Google requires 2 weeks for this sort of review, and then instead of awaiting reviewers' feedback, it was approved for submission and it was submitted. So after this, Ms. Gibber wanted to discuss her findings with the team when she comes back from her vacation, or otherwise she has no choice but to resign. However, after she returned to work, she found her corporate email account was disabled, which means she is no longer an employee. To me, this is quite ironic to see how ethical AI team is trying to make their masters more ethical, and the way that Google is supposed to treat employees based on high standards of employment is kind of eye-opening. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. My name is Manshuk and I talk about jobs, money, and office. Like and sub the channel to stay educated on how companies work if you want to take your career into your own hands. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.